Hey everyone, it's Katie from Bobby Hair Studio. Today I'm going to show you guys how I connect old foils to new foils. Now this is actually a daunting service for a lot of stylists, so pay attention. And remember to follow us on Instagram at Bobby Hair Studio, and also follow me for more free education at vancity.blonde. Also remember to like and subscribe and turn on the notifications for our future videos and tutorials. So let's get started with my sectioning. We're only doing half head today, so what I'm starting with is I'm doing a section on either side, and the back sections, she has bangs, that's its own section, and then the very top. These all have to connect, and that can be the hard part. What I've got in the bowl today is 7 and 20 volume with Schwarzkopf Blonde Me and my Framar foils. Now, the way that I'm doing my foils in the back is I'm trying to blend in an area that's not going to be foiled with an area that is going to be heavily foiled because she's super blonde. So the way that I do this is with the bottom of each of these two sections is I am taking my first couple foils, I'm leaving a large section in between all of them, and I'm just trying to foil only about 50% of each piece that I take. And my drops are quite large so that there's a little bit more space in between them because I don't want her hair to open up and there's suddenly a huge dark gap. I just want to have a soft transition from quite heavily foiled areas to a less foiled area that has more dimension. So the trick to doing this is to make sure that your sections get skinnier and skinnier as you go up towards the crown of the head, and to add more and more hair into each foil as you go. And that will give you a soft transition from light foiling up to heavy foiling up near the top, as you'll see what I'm doing here. Now, as I was saying earlier, foiling can be a little bit daunting for new stylists because we're all taught how to foil from root to tip when we're in hair school, but we're not often taught how to connect our foils once they're grown out, and you have to kind of just learn that on your own as a hairstylist if you don't have someone to teach you. So I'm hoping that there are some new stylists here who have maybe not had someone teach them how to do any root foils and will want to see how I do them here, because this is how I taught myself. So my client doesn't want to go any blonder, but also doesn't want to be any less blonde than she was before. Her other blonde before was perfect. So in order to follow that, I'm just taking as skinny of a section as I possibly can, and I am pulling out everything that's blonde, and I am touching up just the root area or any area that's a little bit darker as well. Now, the way to maintain these kind of foils is to just get your patterns going. Work in the same pattern every time and make sure that your sections are always really skinny so it's really visible what's a highlight and what's a low light. I'm just essentially following along with what I always do with my client's hair. For this one, I always work on an angle because she has bangs and sometimes puts her hair up, so she wants a really soft hairline. Remember, if it's hard to see where the highlights and lowlights are, your sections are probably too thick, so the key is always skinny sections. And here is a little bit of a real-time and up-close look at how I do each of my foils. You can see what areas are dark. I'm also feathering everything as much as I can to soften up the edges of these foils because she is going really light, and I'm not planning on dropping a root down. Now, there's nothing wrong with dropping a root. I do it on most of my clients, but some of my highlight clients like that, standard highlight look where it goes right up to the root as close as possible and they don't have any shadowing. So this is how I make it as soft as I possibly can. Now I'm going to connect the top to the back area, and I'm just keeping in mind how much was foiled just before this. I am always, remember, trying to soften up the foils at the very top because, again, not dropping down a root. Now, you can always drop down a root and just make it half a level darker. That's totally fine. This client has level 8 hair and she's got level 9, 10 foils. So, I mean, it doesn't really seem like there's much of a point in me dropping a root when there's so little contrast. But either way you want to do it is totally fine. If I were to drop down a root, I would probably mix together Schwarzkopf 8-0 and 8-11, and that would make a really nice, soft, natural looking root for my client's hair color. Some of the foils along the top are quite thick, some of them are quite thin. I'm just sticking along with how much blonding is actually in each foil. I'm trying to maintain the amount of blonde she currently has. Not every foil is going to be exactly like the one it was before. That's okay, because if you keep your foils skinny enough, it all blends together and looks beautiful anyways. Foiling bangs can be really challenging sometimes for new stylists. So I find that taking teeny tiny foils, again, that's just something that I'm going to repeat a bunch of times in this video, is really helpful. Also, getting into the little corners of where the temples are and its finer hair is also very important, because if you don't foil that, it just looks like two dark corners that tend to separate the bangs from the rest of the hair. You don't want it to look like your client has like clip-on bangs or anything. You want it to look like your client, if anything, has brighter bangs than anything else, because worst case scenario, you can drop in one low light or two, but if you're doing teeny tiny foils and you don't get them light enough or as bright as everything else is, then it kind of looks obvious and it separates the whole look. Of course, I say this as speaking from experience. I've done that with this client. I have made her bangs not quite bright enough by not focusing in on the corners of her hair. And so the way that I do that is I just take teeny tiny strands and I make sure that like 70% at least of what I foil is going into the highlight rather than being left out, because it's so important to keep her as blonde as possible. Also, the tinier that your weave is, the softer that it looks in the end result. So make sure that anywhere that you're gonna see any fine hair or it's gonna spread apart in the temples, in the front of the hair, and the back, you do a really, really tiny fine weave. Here she is all foiled up. There's like a billion foils in there, but she's gonna be super soft and blonde. And here is her washout, and I just wanted to show you guys what the client looks like in the sink when her hair has a nice kind of blend and a soft looking root to it, so you can get an idea of when you should be putting on a root shadow or when you don't have to. Now I'm going to split the hair and show you right there. You could tell she's a teeny tiny bit of root there, but overall there's no foil bleeds, there's no really harsh lines, and that's what I'm always looking for. Even here, again, you can see kind of where some of those foils end, but she's untoned. Once she is toned, it will be even softer, but I can't find any hard foil lines, any harsh bleeds, and I feel like this is going to be a really nice soft look for my client. I'm toning my client today with Igora Vibrance. I'm doing 9-55, 8-19, and I'm adding clear to it so that we don't have too much purple and cool tones. This is how she looks after she's been toned. It's really nice and soft, and she still remained really bright, and it looks like foils, which is exactly what we want. Not everybody wants to be a balayage. Here she is all finished. Now this is a good example for anybody who wants to be blonde and has bangs. I would recommend that they do foils or foils with a soft root tap rather than balayage, because those bangs just look so bright. It brightens up her face. She looks so beautiful and it blends in well to everything else. Thank you guys so much for watching. Remember to follow us on Instagram at Bobby Hair Studio. Follow me on my Instagram, vancity.blonde. And always remember to like and subscribe to support our channel and turn on notifications to get future tutorials for free, guys. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Happy Thanksgiving in Canada.